Hey everyone, it's Vanderbosch here. So today we're going to try to tackle the lift kit on the Delica. So I went to delicaliftkits.com and they sent these over, some hardware, and once you brake line extension, and once you pay for it, they actually send you a PDF instructional set. So I'm going to kind of go through this into the lift kit. Some other stuff that I bought outside of the kit because I was a little nervous when looking at my bushings is I bought a set of upper and lower bushings for my leaf springs. And if I can get part number on these, it's the MB584531 and the MB584530. I don't remember offhand which one is the upper and which one is the lower. I'll put that in the description to let you guys know, but I recommend, since you're already going to be installing these, to not install the old ones. Get some new ones and swap those in. I got these off of Amazon actually, and they weren't very expensive. So the first thing we're going to be doing is lifting up the back end of this and getting some jack stands. My first jack stands I bought were extremely small and they were nowhere near height that required. I went to Harbor Freight and got some of these 12-ton ones, and I think these will be pretty good with lifting this Delica because you can't lift from the pumpkin, the rear. You're gonna have to lift from like a frame rail, and that's kind of actually high off the ground. So your standard jack set's not gonna really reach that height. So these 12-ton ones I think will do the job. So right now we're lifting up the rear end. We're gonna throw some jack stands on this frame rail that goes across up there. I'll get a better video when we get this off the ground, and then we'll go from there. All right, I already forgot to mention, we went to go lift this up, and some things we ran into almost instantly was that this cage, oh, you zoomed way far in. All right, here we go. This cage right here, this needs to come off. I couldn't get the jack stands through it. I mean, maybe if you had different types of jack stands, you could get up at this frame rail right here with the jack stands when you're lifting up from the pumpkin, but I couldn't get it through this thing. So I'm gonna take this spare tire thing out, and to get at that, it's just a bolt right there, and then this rail right here, there's another bolt on the other side of this frame rail. So I'm gonna loosen that up and get that off. If you've never done your spare tire before, which I haven't, there's this right here. If you pop your tailgate and loosen the bolt up through the floor, eventually you'll get to the point where this can be lifted down. Do not put your head underneath that when you're loosening that bolt up to get the spare tire rack down. I was underneath here when we were loosening it up, and then all of a sudden it just dropped down, and that would hurt. So we're gonna take this off. While we're at it, the instructions for the lift kit also mentions removing the sway bar, and we might do that. I'm not 100% yet, so I'll come back when we get that part done. All right, so we lifted up the vehicle. We put the jack stands on this spot right here. I don't know if that is what's from the Delica manual. It seems to do it on the pivot point of the leaf springs, which is right behind where these are. It's more like right there. But the width of this piece wouldn't fit all the way across this pivot point, which means I was afraid it was kind of gonna bend the edging of this metal. So instead we kind of did it from this spot, and it didn't make any noises, and most of the weight's on there, so that's good. The next step that we're gonna do is remove the shocks. So there's a bolt at the top, one at the bottom, both sides. So we're gonna tackle that next. All right, I got one shock off on both ends. This one right here, you want to take a open end wrench and hold this bottom nut, and then I used an impact to take off the very bottom one. This is kind of like a locking system. And then up there, there's another nut I was able to take off with the impact. This is really nice. I don't know if you can get one of these, but to reach up there in that tight spot, I mean, it was like 2 seconds to take this shock off. So we'll do the other side and see where it goes from there. Just a heads up, on one of the sides, there's this pan that blocks the use of a battery powered impact. So we had to just use an open end to get it. It wasn't that hard to break, but you guys' experiences might be a little bit different. We're gonna remove both these shocks now, and then once that's done, we're gonna disconnect the brake cable, which I think is maybe over there, and put the new brake cable that came with the kit on. So after you remove the rear shocks, the next step is to disconnect these the brake line, and that kind of threw us for a loop a little bit. Luckily, my brother was around to help. But so there's this nut, this piece right here that you can unscrew from the bottom, but this will still be attached through here like that. So this will still be attached. Let me get that back like that. Now the trick here, which we undid this piece down here, and we're like, okay, why we can't remove it? It was still stuck on this bracket right here. There is a this piece right here, which is like a sliding bracket. Now there's a ridge at the end of the brake line that this slides into that kept us from being able to pull this out. So once we pulled this, all we had to do is pull it back towards ourselves. Then this line loosened up where we can pull it the rest of the way off. So we're gonna do the top end now. Hopefully it's pretty much the same thing, and remove this brake line. Key here is we gotta remember to bleed the brakes when we're done. So yeah, so we tried to use a 10mm wrench for the lower screw here, but we ended up having to use something along these ends to get at it. It just seemed like every time we would try to turn it, it was rounding off that nut, and I don't really want to try to go on the internet and find a replacement or try to fab up something a little bit differently. So we kind of went as slow as we could not to ruin that the surface on this nut right here. Alright, so we're going to remove the top one and then keep on going. Alright, so we reinstalled the extended brake line using those clips. We're not going to bleed them to the end, so hopefully that's sealed up. I got a little too quick and didn't really take any video of us removing the old shackles. This is kind of what they looked like. But we pulled off both sides, and the rubber bushings seem to come out right away. This is what mine look like. I mean, they're kind of cracked, but they don't look bad. Now, maybe I didn't have to buy new ones. I mean, it's good to get new ones just so that when you take them off, if you need to, you're ready for it. You don't have to have your vehicle lifted up like this waiting for it. So they don't look that bad. I might have to go to the store and get some grease though for the newer bushings. Here's what the shackles look like. So we'll get these. Let me get a better view of that. We'll put these on there with the new bushings. I need to get grease though, or some type of lubricant for the bushings, because that will annoy the hell out of me if I hear some squeaking. So we'll do that and maybe put the new shocks on. I don't know what the next step after that is. So I'll come back hopefully with these installed with the new bushings. So we were looking at trying to get those longer shackles in between here, and we realized that we did have to disconnect the sway bar link. It does say that in the instructions with the kit, but I thought maybe we'd be able to do it without disconnecting them. So we just disconnected both sides, made sure we had some jack stands underneath to support the weight, and so far so good. I'll get back to you guys when we install the new bushings and the new shackles. So I just want to kind of show you what the stock shackle setup and how the bushings look. I'll try to link to the thread that I was reading about these, but I was kind of confused at first. I'm like, why do I need 4 bushings? I was kind of confused. I mean, you'd think you just have a bushing up top and a bushing at the bottom. But really how this system works is, I mean, you obviously have your nuts, I think lock washer, this part of the bracket. Oh, of course, I'm not going to really do this while filming. Oh, there you go. So that comes off. Then you have those bushings, and there are 2 sides. So I'm going to spread these 2 out so you can kind of see. They're going through. Okay. And you can kind of see how you have the top end and the bottom end. And they are different sizes too. Now this I think it's from Delica Forum, is where I got this information from. But they specifically state that, I mean, I think some people thought that you could use the top and the bottom interchangeably, but I think the top ones are obviously longer. And the thread that I'll link kind of explains that. I'll put that in the description, but with the part numbers. So this is where the 4 bushings end up coming from. But yeah, just make sure to have everything pretty greased when you reinstall it so that you don't get any squeaking or anything along those lines. But yeah. So we got the shocks installed. I also bought these boots for the main shaft just to protect it from dirt and dust and stuff like that. One thing we ran into was we couldn't get the nut at the bottom of this on with the standard bushing size. Like no matter what we did, we couldn't get this even slightly started. So what we ended up doing was shaving just a little section off of the bushing just to fit that on there. Let me see if I get closer. Because there's another bushing underneath here. So we just shaved it off a little bit and retightened it. Other than that, everything seemed pretty good. These shocks also came with these little spacers that were supposed to go up on top, but we didn't have any room for them, so it's just the rubber and then the main bolt that's holding this top part off. I'll put the product number for these shocks. It's what's recommended by this lift kit, so I just bought what they recommended. So we have this lowered, and now we're going to, it says to wait for a few seconds, let this settle out, and then once it settles out, I think we're going to go back through it one more time and retighten it. It also mentions trimming up this stop right here. Let me get closer. Up this stop so that you have more travel. I probably won't do that. I don't think that's necessary. I mean, later on, if I feel like I need to do it, I can always just crawl underneath here and shave it off. So we're gonna give this a few minutes to settle, and then we might jump on the front and after we retighten everything back here. So after we set it down, we took the nuts and stuff back off those shackles, put some Loctite on both sides, and then reinstall them. So this is all tightened down. The rear, I think, is now done. The next step is to measure from the center of the wheel hub to the top of the wheel arch, figure out what that measurement is, then measure between the center of this and the top of the wheel arch, subtract the 2, and that's how much I have to lift the front using the torsion bars. So we're going to do that next. I measured from both sides to see if there would be a difference, but it was the same on both, so okay. So we're in the process of lifting the front end. I wanted to just kind of show you where we're holding everything up. Seems like in a lot of instructions it kind of mentions, oh, lift up the front end, but not where to put stuff. Like, where do I put my jack stands? Where do I put the jack? All that. From the manual, it seemed like the best place to do it was in between kind of the two swing arms and this main frame rail. So that's where the jack is. And then the jack stands we put at this section that goes across the bottom, kind of by the bottom of transition, bottom of the engine. So we have those resting on that right now, and then we're gonna take off the wheels and keep on going. So after we measured the front and the rear, the next step was to measure the threads of the torsion bars. So I measured from the lower bolt to the edge on this side and the other side, and then I marked it down. So we went to the torsion bar, we removed the locking nut, and then we loosened the tightening nut until it was able to get out of the slot for the torsion bar. So that's where we are right here. We didn't take it all the way off, we just loosened enough for this to become, oh, I'm not even filming it, loose. The other thing, so once we do that, then we went and removed the front shock. And one thing that kind of threw us for a little bit of a loop was the old shock has this kind of heavier duty bracket at the bottom with the two holes in it, this piece right here. Now the new shock obviously doesn't have that, but it does come with this. So I'm gonna grease this piece up and put it in there, and then install this, and this is placed. And I hope all the other bushings and stuff that this comes with, it comes with bushings, and hopefully this will do pretty much what that does. So we'll install that and see where we go from there. Now, I don't know if this is correct or not, but one thing I noticed when we're trying to put these bushings on the shock is like there is no thread left for the bolt on the end of the shock. So we're just shaving, I mean, this much material. There's this like raised center piece that I'm just gonna shave off, and that allows us to at least get one thread. Otherwise we were struggling for a long time trying to get to go, and it wouldn't. So I don't know if this is right, but this is what we ended up doing. So we got the shock in, and kind of a weird thing about these spacers is there's a flat side and an angled side. The best way to determine which side is the flat side and which side is the angled side is to put the bolt in, and if the bolt doesn't sit flush, that's the angled side, and if it sits flush, that's the flat side. Now the spacer is actually up above the ball joint. So the holes for some reason didn't quite line up perfectly. I mean, we just kind of drilled them a little bit bigger and they seem to have fit. After you get this spacer in, the new shocks, the next part is to go underneath the vehicle back to the torsion adjustment, put the tightening up nut all the way in, and then you're supposed to get this set how it was before. So in the previous step, before we started doing anything on the front end, we measured from this locking nut all the way to the end, and it was 2 3/8. So I put this back up to where it was at 2 3/8, and we're working on the left side right now. We had to widen up the spacer a little bit, so that's what we're doing, and then we'll put everything back together. Another note to make is that the old grease fittings for the ball joint are angled like this, and now that we put that spacer in it, the greaser is actually down inside here. So the kit actually comes with a bag of vertical grease certs so that you can swap them out. Then you can still get at the grease cert. So I don't know if you can tell, underneath here there used to be a bump stop. I removed that so I can get some full travel. I probably won't ever need to use the full travel because I don't really off-road that much, but at least now I have the option to. So we'll finish up the left side and do the torsion bar and then see where she sits. So after we got both sides done, we put the wheels back on and lowered the vehicle. Then we re-measured the front and the back. And the front was raised 2 inches, which kind of makes sense since those spacers that we put by the ball joints were 2 inches. So then we went underneath the vehicle, and let me just get under here. And to make up that, I think I needed 1 more inch. I adjusted the torsion bar, loosened the locking nut, tightened the tightening nut. I had to lift up the vehicle every time I tightened it just because it was too hard to tighten that with the weight on the wheels. So I just jack up the front end, tighten this down a little bit, drop it, and then check. I raised it a half. I tightened this up a 1/2 inch more, and it ended up raising the front end more than the rear. So, and kind of my brother helped me understand this, is when you raise the front end, the back end will sink a little bit. So when you're thinking, oh, I need to get a whole inch in the front, really it ends up being split between both. So I did a 1/2 inch on each side, and now the front's just a little bit higher than the rear, but I'm gonna roll with it and I'll measure it again a little bit later and maybe make some adjustments. Now I gotta re-bleed the brakes. That's the last step. And then get an alignment. I don't know if you can tell from the side here. We do have some weird camera alignment, or wheel alignment. So I'll have to get an alignment done. But other than that, I think it was pretty successful. I think it did a pretty good job. When I pull it out, I'll try to take another video to see what it looks like. I mean, I didn't take a pre-video, so I really can't tell you how it looks with the lift kit compared to without the lift kit. But yeah, I'll see you guys then. So once the whole front end was done and set on the ground, one thing I tried not to forget, and I even left a bunch of notes on the other side of the shop on that whiteboard just so that I didn't drive away, so I have to bleed the brakes. We extended that brake line in the rear, and we have to go through and bleed the brakes. So I looked on the internet on how to do that. There was a few threads that kind of made it seem easy. The first spot it seemed to bleed was, well, first we filled up the reservoir, and, oh, damn it, it's locked. Hold on, let me grab my key. The first step was to fill up the reservoir, and if you have never looked for the reservoir, or it's right behind here. So I try to get a funnel or something, prevent some stuff from falling inside. I did get a little bit right there, but not too much. Fill this up, have one of your buddies sit in here. The first point to bleed, I believe, I'm not 100%. I'll show some pictures of kind of where I came to these conclusions, but so in the rear, you have your one brake line coming from the front. It goes to the left side of the vehicle, and then the line goes to the right side of the vehicle. So to bleed this rear end, didn't seem like I could find a bleeder screw on the left side. However, there was a bleeder screw on this side. Let me get my flashlight so I can try to make it. So, you look right there is a bleeder screw I used. So I would crack that open when my buddy was pressing on the brakes. I did that a few times for the rear end. We did have some bubbles, and then the bubbles stopped, tightened it back up again. And then, let me squeeze back through here. Came to the front right wheel, and it's the same type of bleed screw underneath there. I'm not gonna crawl back under there. Did the same procedure. Then went to the left front wheel. Then there is I forgot the correct term that they use for it. Hold on, let me squeeze under here again. There is a bleeder screw on the proportional valve right there with the lights on it. I cracked the bleeder screw on the proportional valve, but no brake fluid came out of that, and I don't know why no fluid came out of that. You guys might have a different scenario, but we built pressure and I cracked it a few times and I kept trying to loosen it and nothing was really coming out. I tightened it back up and we kind of took it for a test drive. It still braked. I didn't see any real difference from before we extended the brake line, so I think we're good, but I could not, I guess, officially bleed the proportional valve, so I don't know what's going on with that part. I'll pull up the vehicle and give you guys a look of what the lift kit, and I won't be driving it that much yet. I still need to get an alignment, but I'll pull it up just so that you guys can see the lift. So here's a Delica with the lift kit. Like I said, I wish I would have took a before video so you can really compare the two, but it seems pretty good. I haven't seen any brake fluid puddles underneath there, so I think we're good on that end. This coming week I'm gonna get an alignment hopefully, and when you bought the lift kit he sent some more documents in regards to how to align it in the proper specs, I guess, for alignment. I don't really know too much about how you align vehicles, but I'll pass that on to the people I hire and see how that goes. But all in all, it was kind of an easy job. I definitely recommend doing it with friends. It would have took me a shit ton longer to do it by myself. You get tired, one of your buddies can jump on it and help it out, but I think that's about it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I can post some more videos of maybe some trail riding or some more off-road style things. And I don't normally do that, but maybe we'll post some of that kind of stuff in the future. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.